Well, let's go to Leanne Cusack now for a few ghost stories on this Halloween day. Leanne?
And Matt, growing up in Nova Scotia, good ghost stories were a rite of passage. Our guest today has never outgrown ghost stories. Mark Leslie thrives on them. Mark is the author of Creepy Capital, Halloween Treats, Spooky Sudbury, countless other titles. Give us some of the titles, Mark.
We've got Macabre Montreal, Haunted Hospitals, a Canadian Werewolf in New York. I mean, I just love writing creepy tales. And Leanne, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Now, Halloween is your favorite day, Mark?
Halloween is my favorite month of the year. I mean, it really starts October 1st. To be quite honest, November 1st, I will be doing the countdown for next year's Halloween. It is my Christmas.
So what is it about ghost stories? And actually, it's quite interesting because your interest in the official writing of ghost stories, I understand, was sparked on Spark Street here in Ottawa.
Yeah, the Haunted Walk People. The very first ghost walk I went on was the Haunted Walk People, and I was never good at history. I wasn't really good at it, and I learned to love history, Canadian history in particular, by going on the ghost walk starting on Spark Street, and I fell in love with it because you can't tell a good ghost story without getting into the history. And that was just an amazing experience. I highly recommend, I've gone on several of the trips. I really recommend people check those out. Lots of fun.
So we don't have to travel very far here in this city to find a good ghost story. The Chateau Laurier, a stone's throw from here, you say the Chateau Laurier is haunted, and I believe we have a couple of photographs of the Chateau Laurier and Mr. Melville.
Yeah, allegedly haunted by Mr. Melville, who was on his way back from London for the grand opening of the Chateau Laurier. Unfortunately, he died in the Titanic, but some say that he actually made his way. He actually still made his way and is one of the ghosts that haunts the location. Some of the stories involve a CBC reporter having an ashtray crack in the middle of the night, a woman feeling somebody touching her shoulder while she was putting on makeup, and another time feeling someone's hand press in the middle of her back while she was in the shower. So I haven't personally seen any ghosts there, but you can have some scary tales.
Now, that's the Chateau Laurier, and we saw some other images of other places here in Ottawa and across the country, and we're going to get to some national ghost stories as well. Many people will know about the old jail or the hostel that is apparently haunted here. Did you kind of get the chills when you were visiting, Mark?
I did. My partner Liz was so excited. She wanted to stay overnight. She said, we can stay here next time we come, when we were on the ghost walk there. And I was like, no, you can go on the ghost walk. I'll be in the Novotel across the street with all the lights on and a big flashlight just in case.
Well, that's because apparently, although you write about, the paranormal and ghosts, you're a bit of a scaredy cat, you say.
I am. I'm afraid of the monster under my bed. You can't tell me the boogeyman is not real. And I guess a lot of the writing I do is inspired by my fears. And unfortunately, I'm scared of almost everything. So there's lots of fruit for creepy tales for me to be sharing and researching.
So we will share some of the tales from your hometown of Levack in the next segment. And Hamilton, you call Hamilton home now, but you studied at Carleton. You also consider Ottawa home. So other favorite Ottawa ghost stories? What about the Teachers College?
Oh, the Teachers College, that's the old normal school, and that was, there's basically been nighttime staff security guards who refused to go back to work in the building because of stuff they saw. The most disturbing one, I think, was a security guard saw a woman coming out of one of the classrooms. She looked right at him, walked back into the classroom. He rushed over to, say, you're trespassing. There was nobody in the room, and then later on when he was walking down the hallway, he saw a picture of a woman from the 50s in black and white, and that was exactly the woman he saw walking, who disappeared in the middle of the night.
And a woman who has appeared on many monitors, not on the menu, over at the Courtyard. Actually, I think the story of the haunted Courtyard restaurant is on the menu, but that's a pretty famous one.
Yeah, the cries in the night of unfortunately a woman who went back up to retrieve some papers, and she perished in the fire, and they heard her screams. They couldn't do anything to help her. Plenty of staff members have seen her looking longingly out the window, this woman, this old Victorian dress, hearing things, having things being misplaced. So there are some staff who refuse to work there alone after they close up at night because they are afraid they're going to see her.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you again after the commercial break because we have some national goosebumpy stories to share. Thanks, Mark. Matt.
Let's go back to Leanne Cusack with the writer of spooky ghost stories, Mark Leslie. Leanne?
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, Mark's mission is to give others goosebumps. He joins us with some of his favorite stories of haunts in some of his favorite haunts. And Mark, I mean, you're kind of a big kid from what I understand. We have a little music video that speaks to your passion for Halloween throughout the year. Let's have a little listen and a look.
I was listening to this song again last night when my wandering mind realized the fright.
And as we watch you perform, you're currently working on a book on Gananoque, not far from here either. Tell us about Gananoque and ghosts.
So Ghostly Gananoque, I'm working on this with a friend of mine, Carol Weeks. I met her when I was living in Ottawa, and she's a medium living down in Gananoque now, moved there from Ottawa. And she's got some great stories to share. I think one of the things that's most interesting is the ghostly tales associated with ghost ships, and even at the landing, there's several staff working that have heard weird things, seen weird things out on the water, and heard things coming into play in the like on land.
Now
as
you
they come in.
You mentioned she's a medium, and I have to go to our former Prime Minister. You really love the story of Mackenzie King and how he consulted the paranormal, supernatural.
Yeah, so he actually, he communicated with his grandfather, he communicated with his deceased pets, he communicated with his best friend who had died. He was into spiritualism, and even his diaries, you check, they're public record. He talks about being into spiritualism. He talks about there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophies.
And he was known to have, prominent seances. Now, I'm certain that that Prime Minister probably visited the Lord Nelson Hotel in Halifax. We'll do a little cross-country thing right now. Haunted, the Lord Nelson?
Apparently, when I was staying there was an incident where the light kept turning on in the room. It kept plugging itself back in, or unplugging itself, I should say. Because I like to have the lights on when I come back to my hotel room. And in the middle of the night, I remember I had the light plugged in, I was reading, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I needed to get up early and worried about what time it was. And my phone was plugged into the lamp that was plugged into the wall that I'd already plugged in twice. And when I looked down, my phone was only at 30%. I thought, well, it's been charging all night. So from the glow of the phone, I looked around and saw that sometime in the middle of the night, it had been unplugged. So I decided to just leave that lamp unplugged, because something did not want that lamp plugged in.
You clearly do believe in ghosts, and there is a photo of you as a little guy in this book, Spooky Sudbury, not far from home. You're with Frankenstein, so clearly you were on a path early on. But tell us about the Levack mine, which is your hometown.
Yeah, so the haunted level 2650 of Levack mine, and I've heard this story from Hans Brosch, who's a retired miner who loves going to schools and talking about living the mining life. And it's just a story about a lone weekend where there's very few staff on. There's the elevator operator, and there was someone who was down patrolling in the mine, and he screamed and said, "Let me up, let me up." Now it takes 15 minutes for the cage to bring someone all the way to the top. By the time he got to the top, his face was white, and he said, "There was something down there. I saw its red eyes glowing in the dark." And from that point on, he refused to go back to level 2650. He refused to go down in the mine, switched jobs because he wanted to work on the surface at the mine. And that, allegedly after that, that was sort of the legend of the level 2650 of Levack mine.
Well, I'm taking you back to Ottawa. I don't know if we have much time. We have about 30 seconds left. The Renfrew lady and the grabby clothes ghost actually made it into the Ottawa Citizen as a story in 1931.
Yeah, and this is a story from 1910 where she wakes up, her bed has been shaken, and then she doesn't know what it was. And then later on she wakes up and something's grabbing and pulling her bedclothes off. She turns on the light to find nobody's in the room.
Oh, we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for being in the room, at least virtually, with us, Mark, Leslie. And we made it to the East Coast. There are stories that you always want to share from the West, and some stories in the middle as well. Have a very, very happy Halloween. Leave the lights on.
Same to you. With the lights on. Thanks, Leanne.